Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Parliamentary colleagues, distinguished guests. I've got two special roles to play today, and before I say a few words about the extraordinary Laurie Morgan and his son Warwick here has written this beautiful book, I do have another announcement which I'll make, which I think is in the spirit of being too tough to lose, and that is that the Athletes Commission of the Australian Olympic Committee met this morning and elected Kim Crowe as their new chair. Congratulations, Kim. Kim is here with us tonight. You'll hear from her later on. For those of you who don't know Kim, she was a dual medalist in London and, of course, is one of these people in the spirit of the story of Laurie Morgan. She too has had an exemplary sporting career, an exemplary academic and working career, but the link between these two events, of course, is Kim has participated in athletics at the top level as well, and then gone over to rowing and been able to bring home medals from London. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here with Senator Colbeck and Warwick Morgan to launch this extraordinary book. Now, reading about the life of Laurie Morgan, you're forgiven to be wondering whether or not this person it's actually feasible to be such an extraordinary person. Just to give you a taste, he's the first equestrian Olympic gold medalist, a 34-game ruckman for Fitzroy in the VFL, a King's Cup oarsman, a champion boxer, an international polo player, and a winning horse trainer, breeder and rider. He's also reputed for presenting his valued steed, Salad Days, to the Queen as a gift from one friend to another. Ladies and gentlemen, Laurie Morgan epitomises the spirit of a sporting hero. His achievements across such a huge range of sports are worthy of chronicling in a beautiful story. And I'd like to introduce Senator Colbeck to tell us a little more about Laurie Morgan and Warwick's journey in writing this biography of his father, Richard.
Thanks, Kate. It really is an honour and a pleasure to be invited to participate in the launching of this book with Kate. This guy was an absolutely extraordinary sportsman. We've had a fantastic day today participating in sports, and I know that many members of the Parliamentary Sports Club feel pretty chuffed that they've had the opportunity to represent the Parliament in a number of international sporting events, and in this circumstance, in our circumstance, it's a matter of turning up, but and having a good time. But this guy worked so hard to actually earn his place in so many different sports. It really is an extraordinary read, and Warwick himself has had an extraordinary life, following his father Laurie around Australia, New South Wales, going to polo tournaments and events and around the world, following that magnificent career in riding. And the work that he did in the lead up to winning that first Australian equestrian gold medal in 1960. And it's almost sad, it's really sad that we actually don't, as a broader community, know much about Laurie Morgan. This is a great book. It's a really, really easy read, and it draws you through all of the events. And if The Man from Snowy River hadn't been written when Laurie was riding, it could have been written about him, because he was a fearless rider, he was a great rider, but he was also really, really good with horses. There's a letter in the book that talks about a horse that he picked up when he went to the UK. He turned into a champion horse. He came back to Australia, lent it to a couple of mates who won one race with it, and when Laurie came back, he just picked up on where they left off and continued to be successful. So not just a great sportsman, but a great horseman as well, and I think that's also a part of the character. I could only recommend it to you, and it's a real privilege, as Kate said, to be here tonight with Warwick to launch the book.
Thank you. Thanks to Minister Lundy and Senator Colbeck for inviting me here tonight to launch my book, Too Tough to Lose. The book is a biography of my father, who many of you may not have heard of. He was Laurie Morgan, probably one of Australia's greatest all-round sportsmen. He represented his state Victoria and his country Australia in 5 different sports: boxing, rowing, football, 3-day eventing and polo. Laurie Morgan was an equestrian of the highest calibre, achieving many of his ultimate goals, one of these being 2 gold medals at the Rome Olympics in 1960. He was Australia's first equestrian rider to compete internationally, the first Australian equestrian gold medalist, and the first rider in Olympic history to win the 3-day event since its inception with bonus points on his Great Horse Salad Days, which he gave to the Queen. My father was also the first Australian to ride his own horse in the English Grand National, a race which is still today the greatest test in the world of a horse and rider's courage and ability. My father was a tough guy. He came from a humble beginning, growing up in rural Victoria during the Depression. By the time he was representing Australia at the Rome Olympics in 1960, he was 45 years of age. He'd played football for Fitzroy, been heavyweight boxing champion of Victoria, selected to row in the King's Cup for Victoria, and had bred the winners of the AJC Derby and the SDC Golden Slipper, 2 of Australia's most prestigious races. In the early 50s, equestrian sports were being developed in Australia, and my father was at the foremost of riders, keen to impress the selectors for the first ever Australian equestrian team in the 1956 Olympics. Laurie's horse, Gold Ross, was the best performed horse in Australia at the time, but they were excluded from the team, probably because my father was not seen to be an easy man to have on a small team. This ignited his extremely competitive nature, and he took his horse and my mother and I on a cargo passenger ship to England. He had borrowed money against his next wool clip and arranged to leave his farm under management, which was no easy matter, but he was determined to show the selectors that they were wrong. This sea voyage with Gold Ross was an epic voyage and a pioneering example for future Australian equestrians. Historically, shipped horses have always been confined to boxes for the entire 6 weeks. My father needed Gold Ross to arrive in England, ready to compete, and gained the captain's support to create a riding arena by laying heavy canvases over the steel decks, and guess what? It was my job as an 11-year-old to ride the horse twice a day, every day, to keep him fit and eating well. The book tells the story of how, through determination and talent, Laurie turned the selectors' opinions round. 4 years later, he was made captain of the Australian Olympic 3-day event team at Rome. With brilliance and courage, Laurie Morgan, Bill Roycroft, Neil Lavis and Brian Crago made history. Their gold medal success has always been recognised with the story of Bill Roycroft raising from his hospital bed to join Laurie and Neil in the jump-off and win gold for Australia. My father won the individual gold as well. After the Olympic success, my father stayed on in England, steeplechasing, and was widely celebrated and recognised by the European horse world as one of the best horsemen of the time. On his return to Australia, he took on a Northern Territory cattle station with all the challenges of outback life. This limited his involvement with the equestrian competition, but with his support, an example for many of our future riders, including Wayne Roycroft and Andrew Hoy. My father was an extraordinary man, but is not well known, and I wanted to tell the story so that all Australians could know what he'd done and how he had done it. My friend Wayne Roycroft was the Australian Olympic equestrian coach for 20 years. He knew and respected my father and was inspired by him all his life. He said that this book should be read in every Australian school to encourage and inspire young people to get out and have a go. Thank you.